Okay, so welcome to today's live stream. I hope that you guys are all being safe and things are going well for you. Today we've got a couple things that we are dealing with today. Well, we really only have one thing that we're dealing with today. So as you guys can see, we are going to be working on problem 8. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. I did have a chance to go through it. So I don't foresee this thing, our live stream today being particularly long, but of course, if it goes longer, that is fine. Let's see here. Just to kind of recap some things that I want to make sure that we're doing here. So first off, I did say I did want the multiple choice to be done for the first section. That way we can go through all the first section multiple choice stuff. I think I had that scheduled for Thursday. So let's get that all completely done so that we're done with the multiple choice. Also for by Friday's live stream, now that you guys have seen some problems, you've got some problem types under your belt, right? We've got graphing, we've got tables, we've got this type right here. We've got some different types of problems under your belt. I'd like to start throwing some mix at you guys so that you kind of have to start putting a few things together. So I'd like you to, again, as you can see here, I'd like you to do numbers 11, 19, and 20. Okay, so 3 problems should take it. Now, it should take 45 minutes. But of course, we're still at the kind of the beginning stages of this, so it may take longer. And then Friday, my goal is to kind of go through. I don't know if I'm going to go through all 3 of them, but I will go through questions on them. Okay, I don't know. We'll see. If it goes long, I mean, not like I'm limited. We do have time, and these things have, we've gone on for an hour and a half, which is fine. So we could go through all of them if we want. So we'll just kind of play it by ear on Friday. Anyway, that being said, let's get going on number 8 today. So for today's format, like I said, we'll go through number 8. Then if there's any other questions, maybe I know we got cut off a little short yesterday due to my meeting. So if you have some other follow-up questions on the multiple choice, we can also maybe look at a few of those. Okay, that being said, let's see what we got here. So hopefully you've had a chance to go through this one and do it for yourselves. Let's see. So first thing we have to do is we're going to have to consider that differential function, and we're going to, just like the other day, we're going to have to graph it. So let's see what we got here. Sorry, I had some notes set aside, and I have lost the notes that I had set aside. So let's just see if I have them anywhere. I do. Okay. So I don't know if there's much to say here. So when x equals 0, all the whole function equals 0, so I can put some 0 slopes here. Then let's see what else we got going here. Well, if you could just kind of check yours versus mine, I can go through and answer some questions on it, but there isn't really a lot to say. We're just kind of plugging our values in here. Okay. I was also, as we went, so let me blow that up real quick. I wanted to kind of go through, I had it set aside, I just misplaced it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I wanted to kind of give you guys today, let's kind of go through the scoring a little bit, what they'd be specifically looking for. So I was going to pull up that one. So let's see if I can pull that up real quickly here, just to kind of go over what they're looking for specifically at this point. Okay. First off, in regards to let's see, for the slope fields, do you plug values into the differential equation or the original? You plug it into the differential. So everything that I am plugging in is going right into here. So when I plug in the 0.11, right, I got 2 over 1, which was 2, which is negative 2. So absolutely, everything's going into the original function because these are all slopes of tangent lines. These are all derivative slopes. Okay? Is there a way to denote the problem when y equals 0? So I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Meaning, because I got, for example, when I did my zero slopes, I have zero. Now, unless you mean where it's like a vertical slope, in which case we'd leave it blank. So in like x equals zero. So if you mean x equals zero, that's different, and you wouldn't indicate those. You would just, because those would be vertical lines and it's undefined. Yeah, y equals zero is a horizontal line, x equals zero is a vertical line, but in this case, it's so if you're talking about vertical lines, you just don't want to indicate them. Right? So if you notice on the thing that they gave us here, they didn't have us do anything when x equals zero. Sorry, when y equals zero, because in that case they didn't put any points there because they would all be vertical, and we don't do vertical points. Any other questions that you have? See, there's a couple questions maybe coming in. When the y values are zero and not when the line is zero. I'm still not quite following what you're asking. Okay, good, because I'm not quite. I mean, if there is no y value, you just ignore it. So if it had been, for example, if it had been the function, dy dx equals x, then you just plug in numbers into the x value. There are no y values that you're dealing with. Yeah. So in this case, if they'd put them in, we would have had to put them in, but we don't. In this case, they didn't even ask for those values. But normally, you just plug them in. They're just points, and you plug them in, and you whatever their slope is, that's their slope. And next we said what? Next question was when y equals zero, isn't it undefined? It is undefined when y equals zero. So that's why notice all these values here. That's part of the reason they didn't give points here, because all the y values are zero and to be undefined. So they can't give you points there because you're right, they are undefined. Okay. Hopefully that answers the questions. Is there any other follow-ups on uh, the slope field itself? Okay, so then the point values here, and again, I'm just kind of going through AP. What they were doing is they were giving 1 point for all your zero slopes. So you would have gotten, if you'd got, I'll do this in pink. If you had gotten these 4 zero slopes, that would have been 1 point. And then they would have given 1 point for non-zero slopes. So I don't know. I mean, they said non-zero slopes. It seems a little weird to me that, I mean, that's kind of non-specific. So, I mean, if the slopes had been like completely wrong, so for example, if you had done this, something like this green line where they'd given you a point, I mean, according to them, they would have, but I can't imagine they would have. So maybe, but that's basic. So what they are looking for in this one specifically is they were looking for your zero slopes and your non-zero slopes. Um, that's all I can tell you on that. So notice they're not looking for things like, oh, this one is less, less steep than, for example, that one. They're not looking for that sort of stuff. Okay. In regards to points or things like that, like I said, I'm just kind of going with what they said. But in terms of that, are there any follow-ups on just kind of how the points go? Again, I want to start us seeing some of the points and how they're kind of working here. Okay, let's keep on going then. So that's problem number letter A. Let's go to letter B. So let y equal f of x be a particular solution to the differential equation with the initial condition 1, -1. So in other words, this thing is going to, for letter B, this is going to go through the point 1, -1. Write the equation for the tangent line to the graph at that point. So we are writing the equation of a tangent line. As always, think about what we need in order to write the equation of a tangent line. We need a point and we need a slope. Okay, these are the two things we need. So point is given. It is a point 1, -1. Done. Let's go find the slope. So we're asked to basically find, in order to find the slope, we're asked to basically find what is excuse me, what is f prime of 1? Well, f prime of 1, I'm sorry, let's rewrite that a little bit. It's f prime of, what was the point I was plugging in? 1, negative 1. And what that means is we're going to take our original differential equation and we're going to evaluate it at 1, negative 1. So in other words, and we've already done that. I think you guys would agree. We did that. That's how we found this point right here. And we got negative 2. Is that correct? Wait, 1, negative 1. Excuse me. Let me look at that one more time. No, we got, when we plugged in 1, negative 1, we got positive 2, right? Wait, no, I'm a little confused. Let me just double check it really quickly. So we're plugging it, let me just go do the math because I don't know why I'm getting confused here. I think it looks like it is 2. So I plug in 1, I'll just do the math really quickly here. So we get 2 times 1 over negative 1. So it looks like we get positive 2. See if you guys agree with that. See if you agree with that. I don't remember getting that today. That's kind of weird, but I guess maybe I did. Maybe I just don't remember it. Okay, so sorry, I'm kind of slipping back and forth here. Any questions on that? So I've got my slope. I've got my point. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I did too. I don't know why I was confused. I guess I'm misremembering. I guess that's the problem with doing it earlier is I'm misremembering what I did. Okay, so now we're going to write the equation of our lines. So I'm going to say y plus 1 equals 2 times x minus 1. And I'm going to solve it for y. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to do that. Probably make my calculations a little bit easier. And then finally, they're asking us to use this line to evaluate 1.1. So I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to evaluate when x equals 1.1. So I get 2 times 1.1 minus 1 minus 1. And that's my value. We can keep it like that, or you can plug it in and you can get this. But again, this is fine or this is fine. In regards to letter B, do you have any questions? Okay, then let's move on to letter C. And honestly, hopefully you guys agree, letter C is kind of like maybe an easier version of what we did yesterday to a degree. I think there's going to be one little place, I kind of predict there's going to be one little place that some of you may have had difficulty with, but I feel for the most part, it is an easier version of what we did yesterday. So first thing we need to do is they're asking us to give a differential equation with the initial condition. So couple notes. One, when we're finished, they want this thing solved for y. Okay, so it's going to be y equals blank. So we got to keep track of that. Okay, so find the particular solution when it passes through the point 1, negative 1. So we're going to do the normal stuff here. So I'm going to start with dy dx equals negative 2x over y, and then I'm going to use separation of variables. Actually, yeah, I should have gone through the points on that last one. You know what? Hopefully you guys don't mind. I want to backtrack just a little bit and do the points on that one just before I do that because I have all that stuff written down. So my apologies. I'll come back to this letter C in just a second. But let's kind of go through the points on this just to make sure we're good. So they were looking for, there was 2 points they were giving for this one. So just like before, this one was worth 2 points. This one is also worth 2 points, and they are looking for the following. Point number 1 is getting the equation of the line. So either of these would be fine because they didn't ask for the line to be in any specific form. And then the second point is for evaluating that number. So those are your 2 points on that one. Okay, so again, for letter B, just because I did backtrack for a second, see if you have any questions on that. There is a question coming in, so I'm kind of pausing here for just a second. Don't forget, by the way, ask your questions in the calculus questions and information channel, please. I'm not looking at general chat in Discord. Okay, so the questions basically asked for letter B, how did I know to go through what I did here instead of what I'm going to be end up doing for C? So how did I know the difference between what method to use? And here's how I knew. In B, what they wanted me to do is they wanted me to write the equation of the tangent line to the graph of F, right? So we've done this before. What do we do? Think about what we normally do. If I asked you on a test, let's say I gave you an easy one. I said, hey, we have the function y equals x squared. What I want you to do is I want you to write the equation of the tangent line at the point 1, 1. Think about what you would do. Well, first off, you'd have your point, then you'd go and take your derivative, right? And you would evaluate it at 1, 1 to get your slope. That's the same thing that's going on here. They asked us to write the equation of the tangent line to some function, in this case, the function y equals f of x, right? So what did I do? I knew it passed through the point 1, 1, so all I needed was a slope. And in order to find that slope, I had to use a derivative function, which they'd already given me. Okay? Hopefully that clears up why I used the process that I did. So if that does, let's move on to letter C. Okay, so we had said we were going to find the function. So I said we were going to use separation of variables here. So I get y dy equals negative 2x dx, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to integrate both sides. Okay, so in this case, I get 1/2 y squared equals negative 2 times 1/2 x squared plus some c. Cleaning this up, I get 1/2 y squared equals negative x squared plus some c, and let's see, let's multiply everything through by 2. So y squared equals negative 2x squared plus some c. And then finally, I'm going to solve this for y. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I get y equals, and this is important right here, I get this. And the reason it's important is we get two equations. We get a plus or minus. There can't be, remember, if we want this thing to be a function, right? If we want this to be a function, then we can't have the plus or minus. So we're going to have to make a decision at some point. Are we looking at the positive branch or are we looking at the negative branch? So what makes that determination? What makes that determination is the point that we are plugging in. So I'm going to plug in the point 1, negative 1. So that means this thing's going to be equal to negative 1 equals this stuff. And I'm gonna erase something in just a minute. But let me plug in this stuff. Now, at this time, I should be able to get rid of my, I should be able to, I can get rid of my plus or minus right now. I know exactly which branch I'm looking at. So I'm going to ask you guys, and let's do it in chat. Let's do it in the live stream chat just to consolidate here. So if you think that I'm going to be using the positive branch, if you think I'm going to be using a positive branch, press 1. If you think I'm going to be using the negative branch, plus 2. Press 2. If you would just be guessing and you don't know, press 3. Let's do it in chat right now. Let's see what you guys got. Again, even if you have no idea, just give me a number here. Don't give me 5. I'm against the number 5. Okay, so I had some come in. I had some threes. I had some twos. No ones were given. That's interesting. Not because it's wrong. I'm just saying that's just kind of interesting. So it is it is two. It is the negative branch, and here is why. Here's how we know that it's a negative branch. Remember, when I plug something into the square root function, it's positive. So in other words, this stuff right here is going to give me a positive value. But what do we want? We want a negative value. The only way I can make that a negative value is if I am looking at the negative branch. Okay? So before we finish this up here, see if that makes sense to you. See if that makes sense to you. Okay, then let's finish this up. So I'm going to square both sides. So I get 1 equals, this thing squared is going to be -2 plus some c. So I get 3 equals that c. So when I finally finish up, my final answer will be y equals, and again, this is important, it's not plus or minus anymore. It's the negative branch of -2x squared plus, not c, plus 3. Okay? That's the end of that one. See if you have any questions on that one, and then we'll go through and give some points and things like that. Again, I think most of it was pretty straightforward. I think the only place that some of you might have had some difficulty was with the plus or minus. I could be wrong, but I think that's going to be the biggest sticking point here. So there are a couple questions coming in. So let's see. I'm confused about why there is a negative under the square root and why it still works regardless. So you can have a negative under the square root. So I'm assuming you're talking about the -2. You can have a negative under the square root. And if you think about it, we've seen plenty of examples of things where negatives on the square root. So for example, if I had the function, and this is completely unrelated, so I'm going to do it in a separate thing. If I had this, we've seen this before, right? This is a half circle. And all it does, all that negative is doing is it's limiting the domain, right? X can't be anything outside of, less than -2 or greater than -2, because then it's a domain issue. So the same thing's going to happen here. If we look at the purple equation, I, you just have to make sure that we don't go, if I plug in things, we want to make sure that this piece right here remains smaller than 3 for the domain. So but you can have negative under square root. Again, all it's going to do is it's just going to affect your domain. So now there was another follow-up question regarding process again. So the difference between B and C. So here's the difference. And I think I think some of the confusion is coming down to the wording. So they tell us, kind of think of, in part B, they're saying you have some position function. So this right here is a position function. And that position function happens to go through this point. Okay? So let's pretend for just a second that position function looked like this. And again, it doesn't, but let's pretend it looked like this. Okay? Nope, not like that. Like this. They're saying go find the slope of the tangent line. Sorry, go find the equation of the tangent line at the point 1, 1. Right? So we're supposed to go find this equation. Again, how do we do that? We take the derivative of the curve so that we can find the slope of the tangent line at this specific point, 1, -1, and we plug in the point 1, -1. Okay, that's how we do b, because again, we're writing the equation of the tangent line to the curve. So I'm writing the equation of the tangent line to the curve. So in other words, I kind of made the connection that f prime of x equals dy dx. And that was important because this thing right here, evaluated at -1, I think, or 1, gave us a slope of the tangent line. But we still use the fact that the original equation, the position function, passed through the point 1, -1. In C, notice what they're asking us to do. They're asking us to find this. They're not saying use it. They're saying go find it. We didn't have to find it before. Could we have found it in B? Probably. I'm assuming their math works out, so I'm going to say we could have found it in B, but there wasn't any reason to. Now they're saying go and find this equation. Next question's asked. Let's see. I got a couple questions here. So let's go on to, I'm confused about the algebra to find C. Like you ignore the negatives outside the square root. I didn't ignore it. So I'm assuming, let me kind of erase a couple things here. I'm assuming what you're saying is you're talking about going from right here, the math here. So assuming that's correct, I'm assuming that's correct. If it's correct, then what I'm doing when I go to square both sides, so let's kind of take that step there for a second. So I square the left-hand side and I get -1 squared. On the right-hand side, I'm squaring this whole thing. And reminder, when I square it, I square the negative and I square that. So that whole thing becomes, well, let's kind of do it just to make sure. So we get 1 equals, when we square the negative, we get a positive. This stuff, we just get the stuff underneath the radical by definition. Okay, I'm hoping, Tiana, that made sense. Perfect, thumbs up. Nice, I don't even know how you did that. That just blew my mind right there. Let's see here. Let's see, another question. I'm confused why you need to know that the left branch and the right branch. Okay, here's the reason we need to know. So remember, if we don't, when we went and solved this, we got a plus or minus. Remember, they're telling us that they want this thing to be a function, right? Why do I keep on doing this? They want us to solve this for some function. This is not a function. And the reason is it's not a function. What would end up happening, I'm just making this up. This graph would look maybe something like this if we put both pieces. Doesn't pass the vertical line test, it's not a function. So what they want us to do is they want this to be a function, which means all we can look at is either the top half or the bottom half. We have to choose. And the way, again, we choose it is by looking at the point that satisfies. Which of those functions would produce the point 1, -1? Okay, let's see. Other questions going out. Oh, wait, I understand why you needed to know it, but can you explain how you did it? You got it? Now I don't have to explain it? Okay. Perfect. Okay, let's kind of go through points on this just because I haven't done that yet. This one's got a lot of points. So what did I finish up with? Did I finish up? I don't remember what I finished up with here. Did I get C equal to 3? I think I got C equal to 3. I don't want to, if I'm wrong, let me know, but I thought I got C equal to 3, so I thought my final function was this. And again, if I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm kind of, at this point, I'm doing it kind of by memory. So let's go through the points on, good, so I got it. Okay, so the points on this. 1, you used separation of variables. So I'm going to say, you got a point right there. Not even for the integrals, you just separated. 2, you found the antiderivatives. So that's 1 point for basically finding the correct antiderivatives. Another point for the constant of integration. So there's another point for this C. That's important, right? Not for necessarily finding it, but for actually saying, oh, there is some constant of integration. So that plus C is important. Then the next point was for using the initial condition. In other words, for plugging in this initial condition. And then finally, they gave a point, the last point they gave was solving for y. In this case, I want you to notice you are not, excuse me, the actual finding of C, finding 3, that's taken care of in this last point. And I think also that finding of C is taking the negative uh, radical is taken care of in that last point. Okay, so let's see here. Questions that you have. I have does it matter if you use plus C or plus C1? Does not matter. Doesn't matter at all. You want to use C. The reason I use C1 is I thought that I was going to have to do, like change C's at some point. Like I was going to have to simplify and say, hey, let this C1 equal this. But I never had to do that. So C1, C, it doesn't matter. Let's see. When you have to take an integral with 2 or more variables, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Again, if you have any other questions on this one, please ask it. As you guys can see, it was worth a lot of points. It was worth, what is it? Was it 5 total? Yeah, I think it was, because the first were 4, this one was 5. So there was a lot of points on this one. Notice, though, I really want to kind of emphasize things. You could have gotten your C value wrong. Maybe you solved for it incorrectly, but you still would have gotten a point for 1, plugging in the correct thing, using the initial condition, right? So you could have gotten the C value wrong and still gotten a decent amount of points. Also, I'm going to point out one more thing. They did say if you didn't use separation of variables, you got 0 points. And then let's see. Also, if you didn't use the constant of integration, if you didn't do that plus C, the maximum you could have gotten was 2 points. So if you didn't do this plus C right here, the maximum you could have gotten was 2 points. Okay? And that's pretty usual on these type of problems. This plus C always plays a big important thing. So it's really important that you're making sure you have that plus C, because first off, they're always going to give a point for did you use separation of variables? Obviously, did you do your antiderivatives correctly? But that plus C is always a big deal, right? And notice after that plus C, there's 3 points hanging on to that plus C. Okay. Follow-up questions in general. So we've kind of gone through A, B, and C. So follow-up questions on this problem right here. Okay, so that is problem number 8 today. I do want to remind you, I was asking you to do problems. Where is it? I have it in my Discord. So I was asking you to do problems. I think it was like, why did I lose it already? Maybe I put in my announcements. I think I put in my announcements. Nope. Maybe somebody could list the problems that we were supposed to do. I think I said 19 and 20. I'm just not sure. Was it number 9? We do. So I thought I had. Did I not have it scheduled? Did I not have a live stream scheduled for tomorrow? Because I'd like to do one. If Friday, answering your questions regarding the multiple choice pack. Oh wait, Thursday, free response question number 8. Wow, I kind of got off a little bit, didn't I? Because today is Wednesday. I'm losing track here. So let me fix some things up because I apparently did. I definitely got some. I got some things wrong here. So First off, for the rest of this week, let's just kind of go through. Like I said, we did get a little bit ahead of some stuff, so let's kind of just go through and um, make a list of the things I wanted you to do, just to be clear. So first off, I'd like for tomorrow, for Thursday, I'd like to answer your multiple choice questions. So first thing I'd like you to do is finish the multiple choice packet, not packet, test one. Test one, part A. So the non-calculator section. 2, I want you to do problems, and it was I wanted you to do. Oh, today was supposed to be problem 7. Didn't I do problem 7? Am I wrong? I thought I did 7 yesterday because I have it done. So, like I said, I think I just got kind of for some reason I got. Um, So let me finish clearing this up. So if you missed it yesterday, I did do not yesterday. I think the day before, yeah, Monday. I did question number 7. So like I said, I think I got thrown off. I should read my own stuff. I'm kind of guilty of being bad about that. So if you missed question 7, I did go over it. There's a YouTube video on it. It's linked in my normal videos. Please feel free to go through it. Let's see. So what I wanted you to do, so let's just, again, I know there's a little bit of confusion, so let's make sure that we're all on the same page right now. So 1, I want you to finish up the multiple choice test part 1 question for part A. Finish multiple choice test 1 part A. Get that done for tomorrow. I think most of you, it sounds like from based on the questions you're asking, I think most of you are done with it. But I will answer questions Thursday regarding that. Then for Friday, I want you to do questions numbers, and let me double check it. It was, no, I did not want you to do number 9. It was number 11, wasn't it? Let me double check. I think it's number 11. So, yes. So it was numbers, where did I go? Numbers 11, 19, and 20. 3 questions, okay? So I want you to do those 3 because, again, most of them at this point, they're all kind of review. Number 20 is kind of the one we're still kind of working on right now, but it is a review, and that gives us a, yeah. Yes, thank you for, I need to keep better track. It's kind of hard to find some of these things. So again, we're going to do numbers 11, 19, and 20 for Friday, and then kind of go through the questions that you have on them, maybe go through and do some of them. So Friday may be a little bit of a longer stream just because those are 3 questions. That's fine. We'll take as long as you want on there. So I did say that at the end of this one, if you had any, if there were some follow-up questions on the multiple choice that you had, I'm fine. If you want to kind of go through some of those questions, my earphones seem to be okay. So that is it for question number 8. If you want to, if you want to stick around and maybe ask some multiple choice questions, feel free to. Otherwise, I hope to, I'll talk to you guys. I'll talk to people on Thursday regarding multiple choice stuff. And I do have a few questions coming in right now. 26 and 28. Okay, so let me take care of, before I move on to the multiple choice, let's take care of the separation. It says, before you go to the multiple choice, I'm still confused. What indicates that you're supposed to use separation of variables? So what indicates I'm supposed to use separation of variables is they want me to write the position function of this. So I'm going to have to do the antiderivative. But because I have a mix of variables, right? On the right-hand side, I have x's and y's. This derivative is defined in x's and y's. I have to separate because I think you would agree if I were to just go for it, right? If I were just to go and try doing this, what would I do? Right? I got a mix of x's and y's. What do? I just can't do anything. I have to separate those variables. Hopefully that makes sense. It's like I said, there's just no choice. You have a mix of X and Y's, you got to go for it. So assuming that we're good there, let's go and do, what did we say? We said the questions were on 26 and 28. Let's go to it. Oh, right. We were talking about this one yesterday. I did say we were going to need a little more time on it. Okay, let's look at this. So let f be a twice differentiable function such that f of 4 equals 10, f of 6 equals 7. Which of the following must be true for the function on the interval, on this interval? So the first one is the average value of f. The average value of f is the slope. That's all it is. They're saying, what is the slope of the line between these 2 points? So let's see. The slope of that line is going to be 10. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to step back. I am incorrect on that. One more time. They're asking for the average value. What they're asking for, I should have read that a little closer. They're asking for this. I can't do this. And the reason being is I would have to integrate my function. And I don't know, I have no information on how to integrate this piece right here. None. So I can't do number one. So just before let me finish this problem up. Let me finish up number 26 just so I don't get broken. Then I'll answer that question. Okay, because that's a good question and it should be addressed. So let me just finish up number 26 so I can keep my train of thought. Okay, so again, first one I can't do. Next, the second one I can do. They're asking what is the average rate of change. Now, the average rate of change that means what is basically the average rate of change is your slope. That's where I'm going to say, okay, the average rate of change is equal to 10 minus 7 over, oops, sorry, let's go correctly. I'm going to say 7 minus 10 over 6 minus 4, which equals negative 3 over 2, or negative 3 halves. So this is correct. That is my average rate of change because they are asking for the slope. Average rate of change basically means slope. Then they said, what is the average value for f prime? This one, now it may be hard to see. Let me put that back really quickly. These two right here are the same question. They look different, but they're the same question. Here is why. Because this one, what they're asking for is they're saying, we're going to use the average value theorem. So now it's going to be, so what was it, b minus a, so 6 minus 1, sorry, I'm using the flashcard, so this is the flashcard, just a quick reminder. Let me write it down here. I'm using this flashcard. Okay, I'm using f prime of x here because that's what they're asking me to find. And that's an a down here, not a 0. So in this case, I'd get 1 over 6 minus 4 times the integral from 4 to 6 of f prime of x dx, which by flashcard, this thing right here is going to evaluate to f of 6 minus f of 4. And I want you to notice that's exactly what we did here. No difference, right? The f of 6 minus f of 4 is our numerator of that green circled function, and then the 6 minus 4 is the denominator. So those two things are exactly the same. So 2 and 3 are our answer. Okay. Before I answer the other question in Discord, the off-topic question, do you have any follow-ups on number 26? Because that always is an interesting one. Students always, students always have questions on that. So the reason I couldn't do number one is, so I think that's what the question is being asked here is why couldn't I do number one? The reason I couldn't do number one is, again, it's an average value question. So if I go to it, if I go to try and do the average value, remember the way that's defined. So again, it's 6 minus 4 times the antiderivative of this function. What is the antiderivative of this? I don't even have any values. So I don't know if, let's say the antiderivative of f of x, if I were to go find this antiderivative, was, let's say that was equal to, let's say, capital F of x. Then what I'd have to know is I'd have to know this. What is f of 6 minus f of 4? But they didn't give us those values. They gave us little f, right? But they didn't give us capital F. So I don't have enough. I don't have the information. If they'd given me a function, perfect. But in this case, I just don't have the information because I don't know what f of 6 is, right? Sorry, capital F of 6 is. I don't know what capital F of 4 is. Okay, follow up that you have. Any follow-ups on number 26? Okay, then let's talk about, so the question was asked about final. So first off, I think you guys have heard, and I put this, I don't remember if I said it to you guys. I know I've said this or I've written this or something. I don't remember what. So the plan is, currently the plan is that, after the spring break, we're going to be going to distance learning. So that's what they're trying to implement. Again, maybe that will change, but that's kind of the plan that the district is doing. From that point on, we are kind of going through our normal stuff, right? Again, I don't know what that's going to look like. So, that's what they're trying to decide right now. But I will be, for you guys, not much changes because we've already been doing all this stuff. We've been reviewing and things like that. So not a lot changes, but there are some things about assessments. So obviously, I would like to do, I'd like to do our final. I don't know how that's going to look though. So obviously, there's a lot of issues with trying to do things online. There's test security, things like that that are important that I don't know how to deal with. Um, I'm thinking of right now is trying to maybe put together at least a multiple choice section because obviously it's kind of a little bit easier to deal with in terms of having it timed and things like that. The free response, I haven't decided how I want to do that, honestly. I'm just, like I said, this is still very new to me. So I would like to be able to go through and do our final and stuff like that, but I don't know what that's going to look like. So that's still, honestly, it's still really very much in flux. Okay, that I wish I could give you guys really concrete stuff, but I'm kind of waiting for the district to kind of say, these are the things that we're allowed to do, that we're expected to do, and things like that. Because otherwise, I do have to be in compliance. And then the next question is the AP test going to change this year because they're changing for AP Bio? Have they given information? So I put out, I would, for your best information, I would always go to the College Board. I know my understanding is the last I read is they're planning on going through with the AP, but it's going to be different. Okay. So I would definitely I would definitely be visiting College Board. My guess is, and I could be wrong, but they're probably changing as information is coming in. So I would, like I said, go and visit them because they're always going to be your best source of information. I am always behind because I'm not necessarily keeping track of it. It is important, but obviously I've got a lot of other classes and I'm not always keeping track of the AP stuff, which is important to you guys and it's important to me. Okay. Are there other kind of business, we'll say non-math review questions that you have for me that I may or may not be able to answer in any form? No, just so you know, the AP doesn't communicate with me. I shouldn't say that. I get an email from them like once or twice a year, but they don't give me any like, they're not sending me things saying this is what's going on. So their communication with me is very limited. I don't. So the question is, do I know what Bonato and Baker are doing? So Bonato and I will probably be this pretty much the same. We try to keep things um, we try to keep things the same. Baker obviously is a little bit different because he teaches the BC, not the AB. I am going to have I have there's a meeting tomorrow. Before tomorrow's live stream at 9, I might get a chance to talk to them individually. I know basically it comes down to this. We're all kind of waiting to see the directions from the district in terms of what we can and cannot do. And what, and like I said, and some of these things we do need to discuss. I would think, like I said, while I would love to be able to give a free response, I just don't see how that works in any kind of way. I mean, right? Like I said, I don't, I mean, it would be kind of like a nightmare to proctor. I'd have to like do some sort of weird thing with that, what's it called? That Zoom thing. Um, and then you'd have to like take pictures of it. I don't know. Like I said, it would just be an absolute mess. The free response seems like an absolute mess to me. Um, but maybe there is a good way of doing it. Maybe there's a better way that I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. So again, like I said, I think we're all kind of waiting to see some of the directions from the district to kind of help us out. Yeah, and again, we could also do it as PDFs. Um, but again, then I'd have to go and grab like 40 PDFs from you guys. That would be interesting. Like I said, I mean, maybe there's some things that you guys do in English that, so maybe if you guys have some suggestions that might be interesting. You guys probably know from your other teachers, or because you guys are young and smart, you might have some good ideas of what things can be done. Um, so basically, like I said, it's still really it's still really up in the air. I can't tell you anything more than that. So I will, like I said, hopefully maybe I'll get a chance to talk to the AP teachers tomorrow. If not, I'll set up something. I'll set up a conference thing with them at some point next week so that we can start talking about these things. Okay, I think a lot of us are just trying to learn this stuff as we go. Especially, like I said, like the live stream for me, that's kind of where I've been focusing on right now and trying to improve that. Okay, let's see here. So there was another question here. It says, for 17, I forgot why you square and not cube the function for 22. So, and for 22, let me, so those are questions, so those are multiple choice questions. So let me backtrack here. So let's kind of go back to our multiple choice questions. And the first one that was asked earlier on was about question 28. So let me go to that and then I'll answer those other questions. Wait, 28. Okay. So let's look at number 28. So a particle moves along the x-axis in such a way that its position at time t from 0 to p is given by this function. So this is a position function, okay? It's along the x-axis, but is a position function. For what values from 0 to 2 pi is the particle's instantaneous velocity the same as its average velocity from 0 to 2 pi? Okay, so this is basically a mean value question. And the reason is they're asking, where does the slope of the tangent line from 0 to 2 pi equal its instantaneous velocity? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to go and find the slope of the tangent line. So I'm going to go evaluate x of 0, and I'm going to go and evaluate x of 2 pi. So let's go and do that. So for x of 0, I get 0 minus root 2 times the sine of 0, which is 0. So that comes out to 0. And then for x of 2 pi, I get 2 pi minus negative root 2. Sine of 2 pi is again 0, so I get 2 pi. So my average rate of change is going to be, let's see, it's going to be x of 2 pi minus x of 0 over 2 pi minus 0, which comes out to, so x of 2 pi was 2 pi, x of 0 was 0 over 2 pi minus 0, so this equals 1. Okay, so now what they're asking is, where is the instantaneous rate of change equal to 1? So in other words, I need to go and find x prime of t, and then set that equal to 1. So I'm going to get 1 minus root 2 cosine of t for my derivative. Let's just make sure I did that correctly. I think I did. I'm then going to set it equal to 1. And what do I get? So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So in the end, I get 0 equals negative root 2 cosine of t, or root 2 cosine of t. So really the question is, I have to answer, where does cosine equal, what is it? Cosine equals 0. And cosine equals 0 at, hold on a second. Did I mess up somewhere? Let me just double check. I feel like I made a mistake. Because, oh no, maybe I did. Okay, well let's go through. Let me go through my things, and I'll check it. So cosine equals 0. I think you guys would agree that is at either pi over 2 or 3 pi over 2, and that looks like I didn't make a mistake. So that looks like it is letter B. Okay. In regards to number 28, do you have any follow-up questions? Okay, then I think the next one I saw was for question 17, why use square and not cube the function? And 22, why didn't you plug in f of 1 and f of 10 because in your work online you did. Okay, so let's kind of go through 17 and 22, because honestly I don't remember. That was a long time ago. So let's see what we got. So number 17. A solid has I can't read. A solid has as its base the region enclosed by the graph y equals a secant of x. So let's just kind of imagine for a second. We got this graph, and the vertical line pi over 4. Let's see, the vertical lines negative pi over 4 and pi over 4. So let's think about what they're saying. So I'm just going to make this up for a second. This is kind of silly, but I'm going to make this up. Let's say the graph kind of looks something like this. And then we have these values, negative pi over 4 and pi over 4. Let's see. A solid has, I bet you that's not quite the way it goes. It has its base, let's see, a solid has a base, as its base, the region enclosed by the function y equals a secant of x, and the vertical lines, that's a bad graph. So basically, think about what they're asking us to do. The graph is actually a little more confusing than it needs to be. So let's think about what they're asking us to do. What they're really asking us to do is they are asking us to do the following. And again, this is a little bit easier with a graph, but in this case, we're not going to use the graph. We're asked to find these squares. So this is kind of like we did before where we're doing our cross sections, and we're going to do these cross sections from negative pi over 4 to pi over 4, and we're going to do a square. And I think, whoa, I think you'd agree, in order to find the square, we take one side and we square it. So in this case, we're going to take the area underneath the secant function is going to be one side. And then we're going to square it and then just evaluate this function right here. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense because that's all we're going to do with it. This would be, by the way, that looks like that's going to be the tangent function, and then we're just going to take tangent and evaluate it from negative pi over 4, negative pi over 4 to pi over 4. Okay? See if there's any follow-ups on that one before we move on to, I think, number 22, then number 16. Okay, so let's move on to number 22, and then we'll do number 16. Number 22. Okay. I bet you this has nothing to, I bet you this stuff right here has nothing to do with number 22. Okay, the function is defined by that. The absolute minimum value of the function on the closed interval from 1 to 10 is blank. So, reminder, this is an absolute minimum. So what do I have to do? I have to evaluate the endpoints. So I have to evaluate f of 1. I also have to evaluate f of 10, and then I have to evaluate f at any critical values, so any critical numbers. And then I'm looking for what is the smallest value on that one. So in this case, let's go and do a couple things here. Let's go find f of 1 and f of 10. So f of 1 equals, what is that? So we're going to take 1, so that's negative 1 squared is 1, cube root of 1 is 1, so maybe 2. And then we're going to, let's see, we're going to do 10, right? I said 10. F of 10 is 10 minus 2 is 8. 2, 4, 5 maybe. I think it's 5. And then I'm going to go find my critical values. So obviously f of 10 is already out because we're looking for a minimum, but let's go take our derivatives. So f prime of x equals 2/3 x minus 2 raised to the negative 2/3 plus 0 times the derivative of the inner, which is, okay, so that's all we've got there. So then we're going to go and evaluate. We want to know when that equals 0. So this equals 0, or it's undefined, right? Or it's undefined. So it never equals 0, but it is undefined at 2. I think you guys would agree because you can't plug 2 in. So 2 is going to be our critical number. And f of 2 is 0 plus 1 or 1. So our critical number, our absolute minimum on this interval occurs at the point 2, 1. So looks like C. Okay. Oh, you're right. It is a negative 1/3. Yeah. You are absolutely right. Thank you for the catch. Luckily, it doesn't change my math any, but you are right. I am wrong. Okay, let's see. I think there was, if there's no other questions on 22, I'll go to number 16. Okay, let's move on to number 16. Okay, what do we got here? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this on a separate thing here just because I think I remember, I could be wrong. I'm kind of thinking I remember this, but I may not remember this, but I feel like I need room. So give me a second to just copy this down on a piece of paper. So what do we got? F of x equals that stuff. G of x equals this stuff. And then we want to find the derivative of this stuff at x equals e. Okay, let's see what we can do here. So let's go to a new clean one. So this is, again, number 16 on the multiple choice. So one more time. We are given f of x equals this stuff. And again, if I copied anything down wrong, please let me know, because obviously that changes the problem. G of x equals the natural log of x. And then we are supposed to find the derivative of this function and then evaluate it at x equals e. Hopefully, I have got all that stuff down correctly. If so, let's think about this for a second. So it looks bad, but let's just kind of look at this right here. How would we normally take the derivative of that? Well, it's the chain rule. So in other words, y prime would be the derivative of the outer, so f prime evaluated at g of x times the derivative of the inner, so times g prime of x. Okay, so that's what we have. I've taken the derivative of that piece. Now I need to start plugging things in. Okay, so let's start plugging things in. So what are the things we need to know? Well, we need to know what is, well, actually, let's go and evaluate. So y prime equals f prime of g of e times g prime of e. So I think you guys would agree. I need to know what a g of e is. I need to know what g prime of e is, and I probably need to know a little bit more information. The question is asked, why wouldn't you substitute immediately? Are you talking about like I just did, or are you talking about something else? I mean, I could go through and evaluate those. I could go through and substitute those values in, but I do still need to take a derivative. So let's go and evaluate. So I'm going to go and evaluate. Um, let's start with a couple things here. So I need to know what is g of e. So g of e equals the natural log of e, which is 1. And I need to know what g prime of e is. So I'm going to need to take the g prime of e. Well, let's take g prime first. So g prime of x equals 1 over x. So g prime of e equals 1 over e. That looks good. So let's continue putting these things in. Let me finish this one up and then I'll kind of go through your questions to see if that helps, just because I'm not quite following it. So let's see here. So we got y prime equals f prime of g of e, and we said g of e is 1 times g prime of e, and g prime of e is equal to 1 over e. Now I need to know what is f prime of 1. So I'm going to take this function right here, take the derivative of it, and evaluate it at 1. So f prime of x equals 2e to the 2x. Evaluated at 1 is going to be 2e to the 2, right? 2e to the 2. So this whole thing, so we now have y prime equals f prime of 1, which we said was 2e to the 2 times 1 over e. So we can then simplify that, getting, it looks like 2e. Okay? Whew, there was a lot going on there. Now, let's ask our questions. So before I know you asked a question there, Emma. Did it clear it up in what I said, or do you want me to kind of hit that again, that piece? I'm good? Okay. Other questions that you have in regards to number 16, did that make sense? I hope I didn't miss any. So there may have been some questions that you missed. So if there's any, so I feel like I've done the problems that you've asked for, but if there's some questions that I missed, please let me know, because there was a lot of stuff that you guys were asking and some of my chat just kind of disappeared. Number 19. Let's look at number 19. What do we got here? Okay, so this is pretty much a straightforward derivative. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it is a straightforward derivative. Can I do it here? I'm probably going to need a little bit more room. So I'm going to do it again on a separate thing here. So, ooh, that is really hard to read. So let's go and do that. So this is number 19, and this is root x minus, am I good? I think I'm good. Never mind. Sorry, I thought my whole stream just cut out for a second. I'm going to rewrite that cube root of x, if you guys don't mind, as x to the 1/3. And actually, I'm going to rewrite this x here as x to the 1/2, just because, right, easier to deal with. Okay. So cleaning this, we're going to be taking the derivative. Before I do, I'm going to simplify just a little bit. So I get x to the 1/2. On the bottom, I'm going to get x to the 4/3. So this is x to the 1/2 minus x to the negative 4/3. Okay, so now let's go take the derivative. So in taking the derivative, I get well, let's go and do it normally. So I'm going to get 1/2 x to the negative 1/2. So taking the derivative of that's going to be plus 4/3 times x to the negative 7/3. So when we finish that up, that's going to be 1/2 root x plus 4/3 x to the 7/3. Okay, hopefully that is good. Okay, any other questions you have before we cut it off for the day? No? Okay, so again, Thursday we'll hit any other reminder. Thursday we'll hit any of the rest of the multiple choice questions that you have any questions on, and then Friday we will kind of make Friday a little. So tomorrow was probably gonna be a short one. Feel free if you don't have any questions on the multiple choice, then just skip it. That's fine. Otherwise, like I said, because I think Friday is going to be a longer one, just because we're going to be going over 3 questions, and that could take a decent amount of time. Okay, so again, I thank you all for coming. I will put up, as always, I'll put this live stream up. So if you did, I'll put it up on I'll link it to my Discord. And otherwise, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.